right, everyone, welcome back to 9 to 5 Mom with a Pod. I am your host, Francesca, and today we have an incredible guest because it's a whole new season, Rebecca Rechtszaid. She's a lawyer specializing in creator economy law and music law, and she helps creators and creatives protect their work and their businesses. The number one thing we as creators fear is the business side of things.
Because you don't want to have issues with taxes if you're making money off of your creative output. You want to make sure you're protecting your own assets from being gone after. And then they're like, well, how do I get out of it? I don't like this now. And I'm like, oh my God.
Should I put something in the comments because this is very concerning?
You need to make sure that you're aware of potential pitfalls that you could step into as a creative.
I actually love that you're here today because I'm actually the most excited that I was in this whole new season is having you here because I work in law, so I can completely understand how important these conversations come out. And I know that what we want to talk about today is basically changing the creator's mindset and why every creator needs a CEO type of mindset, which is actually the number one thing we as creators fear is the business side of things. Yes, we record. Yes, we have our things together, but the legal side, the business side, which to me is actually it's the fun side. I love the legal side, the business side, but not everyone is like that because, they just want to create. So if you can guide us through that process, that would be great.
Totally. So in my many years of working in the entertainment industry and the creator economy, I found the same thing. A lot of creatives, you get into this industry entirely because you want to be able to create art and put stuff out there. And that's so awesome and so inspiring. And it's also what keeps a lot of people from making the money that they should be making and from achieving their full potential. Because unfortunately for all of us, we live in a capitalistic society and we have to be able to make the business side work for us so that we can continue to create more and scale. Part of that is getting the right team around you and getting the right, attorneys, the right CPAs, the right agents, managers, what have you. But part of that, and I think the most important part of that, is understanding that you are a business and you're putting something out there, even if it's a hobby, even if it's for fun, you are creating what is kind of like the new digital like media companies,
Hmm.
you as a creator. And that requires things like having a business entity because you don't want to have issues with taxes if you're making money off of your creative output. It requires the same thing with legal entity, with the creating a business entity. You want to make sure you're protecting your own assets from being gone after if somebody sues you for something like copyright infringement. You need to make sure that you're aware of potential pitfalls that you could step into as a creative in the copyright sphere and the trademark sphere. And those things affect you whether you like it or not. So learning to embrace that and strategizing in advance is so important. And it's something that I think a lot of creators fail to do until they get bigger and a problem happens. And then they call me and I'm like, okay, we'll fix this. We'll totally fix this. But it would have been so much easier if you had done this first. And so part of what I'm hoping to do in the next year plus is educating creators on what's important early on, just so that you're saving yourself the effort, the heartache, and the money later from from the get-go. Like you don't want to step into something because you didn't think about, oh wait, maybe I should have gotten an LLC. And what does that mean? And how do I do that? Because it's so easy and it's not that expensive to do.
Hmm.
And it would save people a lot of problems later down the road. And it makes it a lot more expensive if you wait.
State by state law is different when it comes to LLCs, but I've I am so pro having an LLC. I feel like that the first thing, like you said, even if it is a hobby, the number one thing I feel like we should be doing is creating that LLC to automatically protect us and shield us. Um, I learned that
100%.
very early on, so I agree with you. And one of the conversations I had with a mom a few months back, it was the same thing. She just started a creative journey, but she had no idea how to create an LLC. And again, state by state law is different,
Totally.
but it's so worth it. Some states are more expensive than others. I think here in Jersey where I'm at, I think it's like $70 per year to have an LLC or something to,
Mhm.
and adding a registered agent, which it's a whole thing, but
Yeah,
it's such a great peace of mind to have. So,
totally. And also it helps you to, in a way, begin to protect your brand name to the
mhm.
extent that you have one. That doesn't mean you don't need to still go get a trademark registration, but it helps. At least if you're not going to get the trademark from the get-go, the great trademark registration from the get-go, it at least establishes that you were using that name in commerce before, and that's so important so that someone doesn't steal your brand name from under you
It has
also.
happened. It has
Yes,
happened.
has happened to so many people. I've seen it happen a bunch of times. I mean, even not a brand name, but just like catchphrase or whatever. Like Jules LeBron on TikTok had that happen to her not that long ago when the mindful and demure thing, someone stole that from
That's
under her.
right. I remember that.
And because she was able to establish that she had it first, like, it seems like that resolved itself.
Mhm.
It didn't go to court or anything, but it seemed to have resolved itself pretty quickly. But there are
Right,
trademark and copyright trolls everywhere. And so making sure that you have those things established as your foundation is really important, and it's something people overlook a lot because it's inconvenient and it's a little work and it's a little money and it's just something you don't wanna think about, but it's so
right.
important.
I have a question. I mean, I try to refrain from doing like interviews, but this is so fascinating because I'm into law. So, what is the most common mistakes that creator makes when they come to you? Like what's the most common thing that they call you about?
The most common thing that I get a call about from creators and, like, not even just creators, but, like, especially creators is they'll just sign something, they're like a brand deal, they just sign a contract, they're like, "Oh, yeah, they told me it was fine, so I signed it," and I'm just like,
Oh
"What do
my
you
gosh.
mean? What do you mean you did that? Why?" And then they're like, "Well, how do I get out of it? I don't like this now," and I'm like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
That happens, by the way, this isn't just my creator clients, this happens to me all the time. It happens to me not like it's everybody. It's not even just the creative industry. I belong to a dog park, and I had a friend come to me not that long ago for their like they are also a creative, but this wasn't for their creative side of their business. This was for kind of their day job. And they're like, "How do I get out of this contract?" And I was just like, "Oh my god, did you just sign this without reading it?" Because I read it and I was like,
Oof.
"This is a horrible contract." And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh my god, I got them out of it." But it was terrible, and it was like, I had to find a loophole in there. There are so many people who sign things with, like, exclusivity for an insane amount of time with no clear delineation of what that is. So, like, just to give a little more context, like, when you're a creator, if you sign a brand deal,
Mhm.
um,
I love
part of
this cuz I know about this. Go for it.
yes. Part of the brand deal often includes exclusivity, which is it can be full exclusivity where you're just working with that brand, or it can be partial exclusivity where it's you can't work with a certain type of brand deal or a certain type of brand for a period of time.
Mhm.
Um, and the full exclusivity is pretty clear. It's like you can't work with anybody for a certain amount of time. So people generally understand that and know to get more money for that.
Right.
But the partial exclusivity is where people sign something that they're not supposed to without reading it properly and not understanding what they're agreeing to.
Mm.
And so I will get people who come to me signed a deal with, let's say, a makeup brand. And it says you can't work with beauty brands for 5 years,
Oof.
which is an insane amount of time. It shouldn't be that, but
Mhm.
it'll be something like 2 to 5 years. I'm like, first of all, why would you agree to that? It's
Mhm.
never that much money.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Why? Um, and beauty brands is a very big and very broad.
Right, could be
Does
anything.
right? It should have said like very specifically what is it exactly that they're not allowed to do? Because beauty brands could include makeup, skincare, hair care, vitamins that say that they're going to make you look good.
Hmm.
You could even maybe argue that something workouty
Right.
is a beauty brand. What about collaborations between like something that has nothing to do with beauty and what is normally a beauty brand, can you work with that? It becomes very vague and very broad, and very quickly you find yourself not being able to work with a lot of stuff,
Wow.
and that really limits you. People sign these things all the time, and it kills me.
I'm shocked, number 1, because I didn't know that would be, like, a common thing. I thought that that was pretty self-explanatory. I have come across the issue of usage rights where,
That's another
um,
one.
you know, how long do I keep the content up? And I will never forget this. This was actually part of a mom group chat that we were doing. And
Mhm.
one of the moms was like, "Oh, how do I know, when my usage right term ends?" Right? Because a lot of them are also working on UGC, which is like a whole new thing in the industry now.
Yeah,
And although I love UGC for some moms because, that's how they make their extra income. There's
absolutely.
also they don't understand that keeping that video up for unlimited amount of time, it affects their image and their future potential for other brands or other people, not for that particular
Yeah.
brand. And then in that conversation in the group, we talked about, "Oh, how long do you guys keep it up?" And then I was baffled that the majority of the responses, they were like, "Oh, I didn't know we had to take those down. I never take them down." And I was like, "What?" I literally was reading and I was like, "I don't know if I should respond to this group. I feel like I'm gonna" like, I was very, very wary of be like, "Should I put something in the comments because this is very concerning?"
Yeah, I mean, it's something you should definitely be getting paid more for, if you're gonna keep it up for a certain period of time, but, like, yeah, some people don't understand. What's more is some people don't understand. Create like, UGC stuff kind of put
Right.
aside because that they're paying you to put it on their page.
Right.
People don't understand what in perpetuity means in these agreements too, and that
Mhm.
means forever, and they should be paying you for that. It should be an ongoing payment for that,
Right.
or a very big lump sum at the beginning for that.
Mhm.
And there should be a lot of parameters put around it where, like, you can get it taken down if it's, if I I would suggest trying to put something on there where, like, kind of a morals clause-y thing, where a morals clause is something old Hollywood has used forever, and it's super common in music agreements, it's super common in film and TV
Mhm.
agreements, and it's becoming more common in creator agreements. I think it should be very common in creator agreements,
Right.
where if one side does something that could be potentially embarrassing or damaging to the other side's reputation by being associated with them, that they can pull out, and it's
Interesting.
super important to
There
have.
was an actor that happened to, and I can't
Johnny Depp.
remember. Was it Johnny Depp?
Mhm.
There
You know how he wasn't in the Fantastic Beasts movie? They pulled out completely, they didn't let him take it because of that.
Interesting, but there was another
There are
actor that
others.
just became famous, and I don't know if he was part of the new Marvel universe or anything. Man, I and
Mm,
he filmed a commercial years ago. Oh my gosh, if I could just know, I'm terrible with names. Um, he filmed a commercial like literally years ago before he became obviously an A-lister, and
yeah,
and when he started getting to like the whole Marvel franchise or whatever, he told them to take it down. So the company started putting up those old videos, and they're like, he was like, "Oh, take them down," but they were like, "No, he signed a forever, like, it's
yeah,
theirs." And
in perpetuity.
I was like,
Oh, I thought you meant the morals clause. Yeah, the morals clause is something that affected Johnny Depp. The
"Oh,
in perpetuity usage rights, yeah.
yeah,
That's I don't know who you're talking about, but, like, that
I would have
happens.
to get you the name."
Yeah.
I will I don't wanna leave everyone on standby here, but I'll get you the name because I read about it and I was like, "Oh, no." But this was like,
Yeah,
when he started, he didn't know anything, obviously, he wasn't
totally.
represented, and a lot of creators, when they start, they're not represented.
No.
So, and then there's like a fine line in the industry between manager, talent agent, like, what's my manager? Who's my talent agent? And a secret for everyone out there. I
So
don't know if I've said this before, but I used to be a talent agent years ago before I even got into law. And then when I moved to California, which is the most bizarre thing, I stopped being a talent agent. I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. And I just want to focus on law. Weird. But yeah, when you start as a creator, there's so many questions and fine lines, brand deal questions. Um, you know, negotiations. It's just so much. Um, you know, to literally unpack there, but you're I'll get you the name, I promise. And yes, this is why every single creator really needs to have that CEO mindset and start preparing for, I guess, like, I don't know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. The first step is protecting your business, meaning
Totally.
LLC, corporation, company, whatever you decide to open. There's several. I
Yep.
have an LLC, and then once you have that established, I feel like you should have the business side completed, like whether you have your registered agent, have like a point of contact. And if you're in the creator business, I feel like you should get familiarized. Also, you should do a lot of research on what a standard creator brand deal slash contract looks like. I don't
Totally.
I think that's
Also think it's important to remember that you need to have your financial statements in order.
oh,
Like, so important,
mm,
something that people don't think about,
mm,
tracking all of your expenditures, tracking all of your money in, so important, partly because you don't wanna be caught at tax season at the end of the year scrambling to find all of your receipts and everything, but having a system
mhm,
where you put that in order. I have a problem with that myself. I'm very ADD, and so I I forget stuff. And I'm currently trying to be better about keeping track of my receipts as I'm incurring expenses.
mhm,
But that's so important. And it's something that I find a lot of creators don't do because they don't think about it like a business and they don't realize that you need to have those so that you can deduct them at tax time and
mhm.
make sure that you have everything together.
Right.
It'll make your life easier and your accountant will hate you a lot less if you have it ready. Um, so that's something else that's very important to start with. Like, not to start doing 3 years down the line, but to start with that is and just make it a habit and have that as a routine that you do is so important. And also, I mean, if you think about it, when you're starting being a creator,
Mhm,
how much stuff do you buy? Like, how many pieces of equipment are you buying that you could put in as deductions at tax time as business expenses? These are very important things. You'll thank yourself later because you're gonna have to pay less at the end of the year than you would otherwise because you
right.
can put that in. Very important.
No, that's 100% correct. Everything that you buy is definitely something that you should, like, again, keep your receipts. Literally everything. Like, I know it doesn't sound like much, but it is. It accumulates. And then at the end
It
of the
adds up.
year, you look at the number and you're like, "Oh, I did not know that I spent so much money on."
Yeah,
An example, and then in the podcasting space, I have the mix board, the mic, the extra, accessories, the backdrop, which I've been very open about. Like, this is brand new for this particular season,
it's
like
very
this
beautiful.
table. Oh yeah, by the way, I think I got it on Wayfair. And
Amazing.
then all of these are from Amazon, but even though those costs add up, I already had that lamp, but still, it's added. Then you have the stuff on the wall, that all has to get installed. And so yeah, the curtains and things, so the headphones, it adds up. Like, literally add it up, and it's like, "Oh, wow, it's a lot of expenses." And it doesn't have to be all in one. Just keep a list of everything that you spend.
Yeah,
But I want to shift a little bit in the conversation about, you work, I'm assuming, a lot with a lot of managers and a lot of talent agents in the creator industry, correct?
I do. I work with more creator agencies that work with brands, actually. I
Mm,
I worked for many years with Ghost Agency, which is my sister's, agency. They actually just shut down, because they just decided to pursue new things, but
mhm.
they were one of the first TikTok Shop partners in the United States, and I was their outside counsel for 2 years. While
Wow.
they were existing. I also served as my sister's kind of talent manager myself for probably 10 years. So I do work with talent managers. I have a couple of clients that are talent managers as well.
That's wonderful. For a lot of them, because this is all fundamentals, is it a better idea? Is it better to just get a creator attorney like yourself versus, let's say, a manager or a talent agent? Of and what would the difference of that really be like?
Totally. I think it depends on what you're looking for.
Hmm.
I as a creator attorney can't I'm not going to be the person who gets you work. Like, I'm not pitching you out. I'm not helping you craft that strategy as much. I can help with the strategy part, but like, I'm not the one who's reaching out to brands on your behalf. It's too expensive for you to.
Understood.
Um, a manager or an agent will be the one who helps get you work. They can review contracts, but I will say it will never be the same as having a lawyer look at it.
Oh,
Um, it's just different, and the cost structures are different for having each of them. A manager or an agent will generally take a percentage of a deal.
mm,
A lawyer depends on who the lawyer is and what their background is. Some of us will take percentages. Some of us do just a flat fee and like a retainer situation
mhm.
or a flat fee for a project. And some of us will do hourly billing. It just really depends on the person that you're talking to. I do a mix of those 3 things. It just kind of depends on what stage you're at in your journey, and what's preferable to the client, what makes the most sense. I try to save people money the most that I can because, like, I
Yeah.
don't want people to be blowing most of what they're making on a deal to, like, just have me look at it. That's silly.
Yeah.
But especially as you start really building your business out, and if you're taking it seriously as a business, I think having both is important. But having at least a manager or an agent, and having a lawyer that you trust that you can call with certain questions, or small projects here and there to start with, and then as you go, you can start to have them more on retainer if you need to. That's I think that's the best strategy you can have. Um, a manager or an agent will be someone who is on the phone with you day to day, works with you day to day to get stuff done. A lawyer will be someone that you go to and say, "Hey, I want you to help me make an LLC, please, so that because I don't know how to do this. Like, can you help me structure that and get that together? Get all of my corporate governance documents together. Can you take a look at this agreement really fast? It'll take, sometimes I'll look at an agreement, it takes me 15 minutes. I can mark it up really fast and be like, here you go. And for that, like, sometimes I don't charge people depending on what it is.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's like really cheap, honestly, for me to look at it for them. So like if it's that, I'll be like it's 15 minutes. Like it's the equivalent of 15 minutes. Like,
I was gonna say you should get a manager, an attorney like yourself, a creator
for sure.
attorney, and a CPA.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the other thing. Is
Okay. The top 3 people.
100%, 100% a CPA. I would recommend highly, especially if you're starting to really take this seriously. If you're taking it really seriously, CPA is so important. And someone you trust
I
who is
feel
a
like even
CPA.
if it is a hobby, you should still do it. And I
Sure.
think that's where maybe the hobby dream kind of breaks because there goes your idea of like, oh, am I really taking this seriously or is this going to be like a side thing? Because a lot of hobbies and side hustles turn into businesses by mistake
Totally.
sometimes. But I feel like having it, even if you have it as a side business, you should treat it like a business and then maybe there make a decision if this is even right for you. I think that's also like
Right.
another test. The
100%. What I meant by hobby, to me, there's a difference between hobby and side hustle. Kind of like
Oh,
hobby is I'm not trying to make
interesting.
money off of this at all. And like, this is just something I do because it's fun and it's a creative outlet. Like someone drawing on the weekends
Mm.
in a sketchbook,
Mhm.
like you put it out there or whatever, but you don't really care. And
Right.
then there's the side hustle where it's like, if I make money off of this, that's great. Or I'm going to make a little bit of money off of this, and that's awesome. And I'm super into it. There, you need the lawyer, all of these things. If
Okay.
you're just putting it out there, you don't care
Right.
ultimately. You should still educate yourself because you don't want to step into hot water by using someone else's copyright or doing
Yeah.
something else and then you get sued. But like you maybe don't need to worry so much about the LLC and all that stuff because if you're not trying to make money, you probably won't make money if you're not trying. Like you have to actively, as you know, you have to actively try to make money
Thank
in
you for
creative
correcting me on
industries.
that. That is actually no, thank you because I should have been more yes, I should have said that there is a fine line between a hobby and a side hustle.
Totally.
Because side hustles, obviously, you're definitely making some type of money, even if it's a little bit, it's still extra income
It's still
that
something.
yeah, it's still something. And as far as the hobby goes, it's so strange because I know that we are even though it is a hobby, right? Let's say you want to go down the hobby lane, you're still kind of threading lightly in the creator business of
Totally.
side hustling because what if your video does go viral and then you start monetizing on that video? Then it's not a hobby anymore. It
That's
crossed
when you
over.
call the lawyer and the
That's
manager
when you
and the whole
call.
thing.
That's where you need the 3 people.
That's when you call your 3 people.
Yes, I have. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I've had moms tell me that they don't want to start anything at all in any capacity. And there are people out there that are really high believers of like, just start it and you'll figure
Mm,
out the rest along the way. I it depends for me, really. I mean, as to what you're starting and how you want to start it. But, a lot of people are just trying to push you to just be like, no, no, just start it. I remember speaking to a PR um, agent like about a year ago, and I was
mm,
just shopping around for a PR person. And then they said, when you start the podcast, I'm like, well, I need to get all my legal affairs in order. I kind of want to have my agreement, my guest agreement. It's like, "Oh, you don't need a guest agreement. You could just start recording." And I was like, "I don't know. I don't
no.
know." I
I disagree.
I'm I was a little weird about that, and I was like he's like, "Well, I never asked for a guest agreement when I started," kinda thing, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should." So,
Yeah,
things like that, in podcasting in particular, there's so many that is definitely a business. There's so many
totally.
components in it. There's agreements, guest agreements, copyright agreements, especially when you upload to YouTube, they do your copyright scan, like what type of
Yep,
music are you using,
yep,
things like that. It are definite if you wanna get into the podcasting space, you have to really besides recording those are the things because for anything that you get flagged, your video gets either demonetized or taken down, or your platform gets blocked for some reason because it violated whatever terms of
the
agreements.
DMCA. Mhm.
Yeah. And also in selling products, um, you also have, barriers there as well. You have
Mhm.
legal obligations that you have to follow and things like that.
Totally.
But anyway, that's a whole rabbit hole of information. I really just wanted to get everyone in the same page. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to get everyone on the same page that you're going to have to educate yourself a little bit more. Are there anything out there that you could do or you just recommend people to just start maybe consulting with these CPAs, attorneys, managers, or do you have a particular strategy that maybe they can do without having to see someone or sit down with someone?
So, I think the first thing that I would recommend to a creator who's trying to start in any creative business really is just get a general understanding of copyright law
Mhm.
because you're going to be dealing with intellectual property, you're going to be dealing with copyrights. End of the story. Anytime you make something original and you put it into a fixed medium like this,
Yeah.
writing it or anything, it's copyrighted. So, and we're constantly bombarded with um, copyrighted materials and all of this stuff. So it's very important to understand how that works and what can you use and what's fair use and what is the DMCA? Why do things get demonetized on YouTube? How does that work? And those are usually a pretty quick Google. I don't think you need to call a lawyer about those things. I'm trying to create content now on my various platforms to educate people on that. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be putting it out with
Oh, that's
information
good.
about just the basics, just so that people have it. I think it's important to democratize the law and allow people to have just a basic understanding of what they're stepping into before they do it.
Mhm.
So I'm working on that right now. I know of a bunch of other people who have copyright related stuff, though not in the creator economy. I'm not aware of anybody who has tailored it directly to the creator economy in like a book form or any kind of YouTube videos or anything at this point, but I'm working on that.
Right.
So those are places you can start. And I also think having a just like a general understanding of like just business. Like there are so many business books out there. You can just find one. It doesn't have to be specific to creators because
Mhm.
it's not going to be like, you know, how does this work? Like what is what does it take to start a business in my state? You can look that up. The Secretary of State in your state usually has some kind of
Right.
guidebook, playbook, something like that. I think that's really helpful to look into. those are the places I would start. There's tons of papers out there by people who know what they're talking about. That's how I started before I went to law school, but understanding more about intellectual property law because that is the most important thing I think creators don't pay attention to and should because that's how they end up in hot water, even if they're not making any money. Like they'll be using someone else's music, for example, and they don't
Mhm.
understand why that's not okay, or they'll put fair use like at the very top of their YouTube video. And I'm like, well, you can say it's fair use. That's not how this works. You can say all you want. Like I can put a picture of myself and say, this is a llama. I'm still not a llama. It's the same thing.
Right.
So it's very important to understand just the very, very basics. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to call a lawyer. It's going to be expensive to do that. So that would be the beginning point.
Mhm.
But you're going to run into, if as you go down the line, you're going to run into stuff where you're like, I can't Google this. Like, I don't understand
Right.
what's happening. This contract doesn't make sense. That's when you call someone like me who's aware of, all of the tips and tricks and all of the pitfalls and knows how to negotiate this for you and will.
Okay.
Um,
This
that's when you call me.
this is amazing. This is where you call Rebecca, people, okay? I love it. I really do. And in creators funny because uh most creators are managers, their own managers, their own
Yep,
pit, they pitch themselves, they are their own accountants, they are their own attorneys
yep,
basically in a sense. Like you're everything. And it's
yep.
very difficult because in the beginning you're going to be so low in cash because you're in that negative in the J curve.
Mhm,
No money's coming in. Understanding brand deals is another thing. And there's so many, what you call it, like quick things like, hey, buy my guide and know how to, you know, get a brand deal in like 30 seconds or whatever the situation is. But it's a lot more complex than that. And
totally.
a lot of people don't understand that. I feel like that's where I come in the mom creator community where whenever they ask me about something, I'm like, okay, if it's a legal related question, I can kind of like direct you to the right person where you could talk to. Um, because I can't give legal advice. Obviously. Obviously.
Yes.
But yes, but as in talking about all of that, protecting yourself in brand deals and how we just talked about in perpetuity clauses, the moral clause as well. Also, like the usage rights. That was a big one for me that really threw me sideways when I
Totally.
had
Yeah.
that conversation in that group where I was like, "Oh, I did not know." Even from a brand perspective, for me, I was like, "I would not keep that up forever." As a brand in the marketing world, right? Because
Yeah.
that's just going to be on your page, and if I'm going to visit your page, I feel like it's literally going to look exactly like if you were like trolling me or just trying to sell me something all the time. But aside
Mhm.
from that, is there any recommendations, tips, or tricks that I think this is a really big one? Is there any recommendation, tips, or tricks to negotiating brand deals besides what we talked about? Is there something in particular that you go to that you want everyone to know?
I think there are a handful of pillars of every contract that you should know.
Mhm,
Um, like even if you're first of all, the most important thing is to read the contract. Read the whole thing, line by line. Read the whole thing. You don't have to be
mhm,
California barred attorney or state barred attorney in any state to be able to read a contract. You can
mhm,
read it, and then ask questions. If
mhm,
you don't understand what something means in the agreement, you should feel comfortable asking the other side. It's I look at contract negotiations as like a first date in a lot of ways.
mhm,
You shouldn't feel scared to ask important questions because this is someone you're going to be in a relationship with, a business relationship, but a relationship with.
mhm,
And if they get really weird about you asking questions, just simple questions, do you really want to work with that person? Do you want to be in a relationship with that person?
mhm,
Probably not. That means they're hiding something or they're trying to get something out of you that they know that they shouldn't be able to get out of you.
mhm,
So that's super important. One of the things that I do the most as a lawyer is I ask questions. So if I see something where I'm like, I don't understand why you're asking for this, this is weird. The first thing I do is I say, hey, can we get on a call? What do you need this for? Like, why is this in here? For example, an exclusivity clause that's very vague. I'm like, well, what is it that you're trying to protect against here? What is it that you don't want them doing? What is it that you don't want them working with? Because then let's like make this more clear and more specific. like, that's literally I just gave you a, like, sneak peek into what it looks like between 2 attorneys that are negotiating a
Right.
deal. It's like, so much of it starts with, "So what do you need this for? Like, why is that in here?" You should feel comfortable as a creator advocating for yourself and doing that for yourself because it should be expected, and if it isn't, then there's something wrong with the other side.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing, is read everything and ask questions if you don't understand. But, like, looking for things like, what's the term of the agreement? How long are you in this agreement for? That's important to know so that you have an understanding of what's the timeline. What are you in for? Knowing what the services are, understanding the payment situation. Like, how much are they, not only how much are they paying you, but how long do they have to pay you and what happens if they don't? So,
Mhm.
are there late fees? Can you stop working if they don't pay you? If it's like multiple pieces of content, one of the first things I'll throw in there is like, if you're late and you don't pay, my client can stop working until you do pay.
Mhm.
So that's something very important, and I've had to use that. We've had to use that. My clients have had to use that before, where like, someone won't pay, and they're like, "All right, great," and they'll call me freaking out, and I'm like, "We'll send them a demand letter. Don't worry about it." But also, like, stop.
Right. Right.
And that's often your best leverage, honestly, is just, okay, great. I'm not going to do anything more. But
Right.
otherwise, if you didn't have it in there, you would still legally have to continue. And then you could go after them in court after. But like, you can't stop providing what you agreed to just because they haven't paid unless you put it in there.
Right.
So having that understanding, um, what exactly you're giving, who owns the content at the end of the day, is something that's very important that I tell people to look for in contracts too.
Mhm.
Is like, if it says assign or if it says work for hire, work made for hire, don't sign that thing, ever, because you're giving them ownership of your work, and
Mhm.
then they can use it however they want forever, and you have no rights.
Oh,
You can't stop them. You can't tell them anything about it. It belongs to them. That's very important to understand. And I think a lot of people don't realize, because it's like the couple small words here and there, it's kind of like the in perpetuity. People don't think about that. They don't read it. And it's 2 words. It's not like there's something on the contract that says, if you sign this, we own your stuff forever, or we can put it up forever. It doesn't say that. They're not going to say that.
right.
It says it in 2 small words.
Literally.
So reading the little 2 small words and understanding what those mean is extremely important. And most people don't read the contract, they just sign it because they see the money. They look for the money,
Wow.
and they look for maybe the services that they need
Right.
to give, like, and that's it. And then they don't read the rest of it, and they don't know
There's a
what they're
reason
agreeing
why
to.
it's 5 pages.
Yep. Yep,
There's a
there's a
It's like all I
reason.
care about is the money side, but you have no idea that you're getting screwed at the end of the process. Like
Yeah, you're
that.
giving them so much more.
And a lot of the times, and I've seen this come across again and again, we trust them because they're like, "Oh, but it's a big brand name or whatever." And
Yep.
I'm like, doesn't mean anything to me. You have to read it. You have to ask questions. And there's this fear and perception about asking questions. Don't know why. But another thing that also came to my attention with these creators was, specifically the mom content creators that I talked to, is that they record things in batches, right? So they ask them to say, "Oh, here's the list of things that we want you to record for this particular product." And then they record it, they meet all of their check boxes, whatever. And then they come back and they say, "You know what? We have additional terms that we kind of want to incorporate into this video." But then the particular mom that I'm talking about, she was like, "Yeah, but that's asking for extra time. The agreement was that I recorded these 7 things that you guys wanted, and I
Mhm.
recorded these 7 things. I sent you the recordings even though you're not happy with the recordings, even though you told me that that's what you wanted. Now you want additional terms, that's additional time." So
Yeah,
you also have to know how to renegotiate and amend your contract, um,
totally.
so
Yep.
it fits the needs. But there's also, again, it goes back to the fear because they're like, "Oh my gosh, if I look bad, they'll never get me again for another project or whatever." And I would just say screw that. I mean, there's plenty of work out there, but
Yeah.
amending and renegotiating, I think you would agree, is also
Yeah.
another one.
And that's something that I think gets used against creative people. This
Mhm.
happens a lot in the music industry too.
Oh.
Where it's like, but just trust me, like we'll work it out later. And I also, to get on my soapbox a tiny bit, I think it gets used against women a lot,
Mhm.
especially because we were socialized to be accommodating
Yeah.
and to not be difficult. And the like worst thing you can say about a woman is that she's difficult,
Oh.
right? Like one of the worst things you can say. And I think people use that against us.
Mhm.
And it's part of the reason why I'm so strong in my advocacy of creators, especially female creators and female artists and, them presenting all of
Mhm.
that is because we're the ones who get stepped on so much harder because they just go, "Oh, but you're being difficult," or like make you feel uncomfortable about it
Yeah.
in a way that they would never do if you were a man. So I find that happens a lot more to women creators.
Yep.
And it's terrible and you shouldn't let them make you feel that way.
Yes.
It's very I get that that's very difficult because
Yeah.
it has been such an adjustment for me as working as an attorney was such an adjustment to be like, no,
Mhm.
like I'm right. I'm
Right.
not being difficult. You're trying to take advantage of me or
Mhm.
you're trying to take advantage of my client. I am not. I'm not standing for this. This
Right.
isn't happening. And it's the first person who needs to be your own advocate is you.
Mhm.
Um,
Well
and
said.
so
Very well said.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank
Keep
you.
going. Sorry. Well said.
And learning how to ask for what you deserve and ask for what you're worth is so important.
Mhm.
It's it's so difficult for so many of us because we
Yeah.
were told not to do that and we were
Yeah.
told to not take up space and not to argue and to, sit, and help everyone else and, why aren't you just like happy for what you have? Why aren't you
Mhm.
just like helping this person out because they're great and like you're just being difficult by
Mm.
not selling yourself short. It's something that's very hard to unlearn, but it is the most important thing for mom creators, for women creators to do because you're not being too much. You're literally just asking for what you're worth. That's it.
I've seen that problem over and over again. They don't want to ask for too much. They don't, because they think that, they just want to work for exposure sometimes, which I think it's bananas. But
Yeah.
they're like, no, but because it's a big, 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 big brand, I'll do it for just the exposure, and then they'll get me to do it again. And that's like a promise that I've heard over and over. Yes, work for exposure. I have my a photographer actually. I spoke with a photographer, and she used to be a fashion photographer, and she stopped, and I said to her, I know why you stopped, because they kept saying, "Oh yeah, we'll take you to, we'll pay your stuff. If you come to Fashion Week and take photos, we're gonna give you a job." Okay, and she goes, and they don't give her the job, but they want her photos, all of her
Of
photos,
course.
in high resolution for free, and they'll say that they'll put her in for exposure. But she's like, I had to quit. The moral of the story
Yeah.
is know your self worth. Ask, always aim high. The worst thing that they could do, the worst thing that can happen is that they say no and negotiate a little bit lower. But that's what the
Yeah.
negotiation process is. It's at least that you start somewhere and you end somewhere. There's a bracket. I know that they teach that to lawyers. We have
Yeah.
the negotiation bracket. Obviously, you're not going to start at $1 million. And they're like, no, well, we're thinking about $500. That's a big
Yeah.
bracket. Okay.
Sure.
you know,
Being reasonable is important.
but being reasonable for your time is important. And I think I had this conversation with a previous guest, which I thought was a fascinating idea. How to know your self worth is how much are you willing to work for a regular job at that rate of the amount of hours that they're asking? Because a
Yeah.
lot of people don't understand the concept of the content creator and how long it takes to put it together, to edit it, to wrap it up, costume, if they have to wear something in particular, that all adds up to that particular
Yeah.
project.
Of
But anyway, and she
course.
said, "Hey, if you're not willing, if you're dividing everything and it ends up being minimum wage, you're not going to work anywhere for minimum wage, right? So that's how
Right.
you kind of figure out your self-worth." And I thought that was an amazing tip that she brought up. But
Yeah.
Re-
Totally agree. Couldn't have
Rebecca,
said it better myself.
I I love this. Rebecca, I can't wait to have you back. Literally, I wish that I can have you back for another episode of Q&A with other moms, which that would be super
I would
phenomenal.
love that. That
But
would be great.
honestly, I thank you so much for being a part of this episode. I want to thank everyone that's listening out there the same. For Rebecca, I'm going to leave her links below so you guys can go directly to her website. And again, thank you. And unless you have
Thank
anything
you for
else
having me.
to say, until next time.